So what I wanted to do in this video is I want to talk about the posture, and I also just wanted to talk about it from a sense of what you should be looking for in the posture and the big difference between, I would say, amateurs and more elitist golfers when it comes to setting up to the golf ball. So I think what we're trying to do in the golf swing is we're obviously trying to address a static golf ball. We're trying to align our feet and our body parallel towards our target. We're trying to position the golf ball relative to where your low point is. And then what we're going to be doing there from this position is we're going to basically produce a backswing and a through swing with striking the golf ball halfway in between both of those. Now, you're going to see this more and more on the channel. If you're somebody who's trying to develop your own game, one of the best ways you can do this is to learn how to hit the golf ball further. The biggest differences, what we see generally speaking with amateur golfers, is distance. Now, you might know a couple of mates who have a really good set of skills, so they might be really good at putting and they beat the averages on putting. But generally speaking, it's going to be the division between each handicap is going to be distance. And like I say, you're going to see more and more of this. So this brings me back to the posture. In terms of what should you really be doing? Well, once you've got your basics, your alignment and things, there's a couple of other things that I want you to sort of, I say, play around with, just experiment with. The first one is the width of stance. So I tend to see most amateur golfers get too narrow. And basically the correct width, I would say, is if you were to draw a line vertically through the instep of either ankle, that's where your hip should be. And this just gives you a little platform to sort of move the pelvis slightly from right to left without, if I do it narrow, without sort of sliding. So I can still stay very much balanced in between my feet as I move that sort of pelvis from right to left. And I think that's the big thing, right? For most amateurs tend to stand here quite static with quite a narrow stance and just looking down at that golf ball, as opposed to what you tend to see with more elitist golfers is a wider stance and a little bit more movement between the feet. However, before you go and practice this, I think what we need to be careful of is there's a significant difference between what I'm doing here, which is almost sort of, you know, allowing this club to sort of move around and waggle around, and what my feet are doing, which is up, down, as opposed to this, right? That's going to do you no benefit at all. So what I want you to practice, I want you to practice wider in your stance. And then the second exercise, I want you to just put the club across your shoulders. And I just want you to not turn. I want you to just feel like you're tilting. So my shoulders are staying parallel to the target. And this is just allowing my pelvis to sort of feel like it moves slightly to the right and left. And then as I'm doing this, I'm just starting to get the feeling that when I tilt down to my left, so my right shoulder goes up, I'm taking the weight off my left side. And then when I do it the other way, I'm taking the weight off my right side. And all this is doing is this is just taking a bit of weight pressure off either foot, because I think, again, what amateurs lose sight of is the backswing position is very much an extension. You're trying to lift that club up into a good position, like so. I just think that, you know, you sort of stand there, narrow stance, static like this, you know, the chance of you being able to elevate that club up with an element of athleticism is just extremely unlikely. So, just like I say, a short little tip. Wider. The second thing that I tend to see then with golfers position the golf ball, with better golfers tend to position the golf ball slightly further forward. One, it helps the club move quicker through the bottom of the ball, but also tend to find that golfers, when I experiment in lessons, I get them to move the ball further forward, they tend to move better through the ball. It tends to encourage amateurs to introduce more linear motion, as opposed to if I have the ball way back, it kind of forces me to sort of almost feel like I'm hanging back to hit it. So I think wider in the stance is one. Feel that little bit of weight pressure moving a little bit from right to left is a good skill that you can start to harness and something that you want to be doing. Move that ball position a little bit further forward to encourage that little bit more sort of linear motion coming in towards your golf swing. And then the last thing, look at my feet. So my left foot's slightly flared out, my right foot's slightly flared out, and that's because that helps me trigger rotation and gives me much more capability to sort of turn in through that shot on that left-hand side. As opposed to, again, I tend to see a lot of amateurs look this way. And you can just see the difference now, can't you, between this one, somebody who might look down a little bit down there, and then somebody who's sort of like so. So I practice it. I practice this sort of little drill, get a feeling of how your feet are supposed to be moving, and that's going to give you that capability to then produce much more of an explosive movement in that backswing. My final point is, I wouldn't disassociate speed and technique. What you tend to find with golfers that do things like speed training is that their technique tends to improve as well, and the two are very closely aligned, which is why I wouldn't underestimate the importance of this type of exercise. Let me know how you get on. I'll see you guys again really soon.